We're at the 26th CROI here in Seattle, Washington. We're here with Nigel and Paul, who are going to talk about some new research that they've done on testing and implementation, I guess. And it's important because this is where the rubber meets the road. It's really about getting people tested. So anyway, I'll let them introduce themselves so that we can get a sense of who you are and what you represent, your affiliation, and so forth.
Great. So I'm Paul Drana. I'm a professor at the University of Washington, and I'm a co-principal investigator of the STREAM study, which was conducted in South Africa.
And you were the one that just finished the press conference, so
Yeah.
you're the face that most people will know, but you're the less visible person.
So I'm Nigel Garrett. I'm a senior researcher in South Africa at the Center for AIDS Program of Research in South Africa. Also short name known for CAPRISA, but so we're quite famous for the tenofovir gel.
Right,
you may
right.
remember those studies. I do mainly vaccine research, but I got really interested in this new technology just in terms of the need for better patient care in South Africa.
Now, before we get started, because you talked about vaccine research, we talked about making sure that there's this continuum of research capability.
Yeah.
In all the, is this something that you're looking at? Do you have some concerns about that? Because I know we have to keep research facilities going and this stream of research, and vaccines are going to be an important part down the line. So.
Yeah, so we do a lot of vaccine research, but we're using point-of-care technology. This is what the study is about. In our vaccine trials now. So we've piloted and evaluated a lot of these STI point-of-care tests that are PCR-based now. And we also conducted the first evaluation of this Cepheid expert viral load assay that we used in the larger study now, in our smaller studies in our clinic in South Africa. And then we felt we need to really take that to the next level. And that's where we brought Paul on board, who used to come down to South Africa frequently, almost 4 times a year, to do TB research. And then we felt we should, and also other point-of-care technology research. So we played tennis together, and we decided to do a project together. And
it's funny how so much science happens outside the realm of, we were just talking about that, outside the realm of the actual work.
That's right.
But it is about relationships. And just another point, it is important that we have these meetings because this collegial material, talking in the halls, the hall talk, is critical. If we didn't have that, this consortiums and groups and collaborations just wouldn't happen.
Yeah, to get back to your point, these collaborations with people in other countries in sub-Saharan Africa are absolutely critical to our work. So I'm based here in Seattle, and to have clinical partners in South Africa that can actually help us implement clinical trials are absolutely critical, whether it's for this study or for any other study that's being presented.
So we want to make sure we maintain that
absolutely.
That ongoing.
So what we also found is that the core PI model works very well. So if you have 2 strong partners in both settings and really challenge each other. To some degree, where I'm
kind of hoping, you were in the Tony Fauci presentation.
Yes.
I'm thinking that there's going to be a little bit of competition between the CFAR sites. I'm hoping that we'll get, there has to be a lot more to it, and testing is going to be a critical part of that.
Yes.
Because people don't know they're positive, they're out there, and I think that a lot of people still don't want to know.
Yeah.
So, but let's get into the essence of what is there a branding for this program?
Yeah, so this is called the STREAM study or STREAM trial. So we did a randomized clinical trial in Durban, South Africa. We enrolled adults who had already been taking ART for 6 months. And this is at the time that they were due for their first viral load test. And we randomized them to either standard of care laboratory-based testing, which is where we draw the blood, send it off to the lab, tell the patient to go home and come back in a month or 2 to get their lab results. In our intervention group,
and you were talking about 28 days, is that right?
28 days was about the median amount of time for the patient to get their viral
result. And it didn't have to be that
result.
at all. It didn't really have to be that.
That's right. So I'll present these data tomorrow. So in our intervention arm, we were able to do point-of-care viral load testing. It took about 2.5 hours from the time that patients came in to get their viral load results, and we were able to speed that up a little bit by doing their blood draw early in the clinical visit and then managing the clinical visit while they're waiting. But the limit of the machine is currently about 1.5 hours.
It seems like you do before their clinical visit. They go in, get tested, then register for their clinical visit.
Exactly.
By the time that's over, it's almost done.
Exactly. And that's the model that we were trying to shoot for, is to really minimize the time that the patients have to wait in the clinic. And overall, it's about minimizing the burden for patients. And they don't want to have to come back a week later or 2 weeks later or 4 weeks later to get their results if we can deliver their viral load results on the same day.
Seems like there's a sense of concern, that you're showing concern for them in giving them that instant result. And that's why we operate. This is an instant gratification society here.
Yeah.
We believe people should always have, why can't you tell me now what it is, right?
Yeah.
I know many times there's reasons why, but in this case there really isn't. So you've made the change.
Well, it's a patient-centered approach, and the more we put barriers in front of them, and the more we present challenges to them to achieve viral suppression, the harder it's going to be. So the easier we can make it for them, if we can get the results back to them right away, if we can identify what the barriers are, it'll achieve better outcomes.
The other thing is also, we grew up in the CD4 count-driven world a bit. Everyone knew their CD4 count, but in the more resource-limited settings, the viral load is only being rolled out for some years now. And the whole message about the importance of the viral load is not being transmitted well enough. So I think that's the power of this point-of-care test, that you can really explain what does that mean?
I think
detectable virus.
If there can be one thing that I've already taken away from the conference, is just about to start, is that, in the pre-conference and so forth, is that we really do need to have more education for the patients. Let them understand why we do what we're doing, what the testing actually means, and that we've had a lot of people in one of these discussions that we had pre-conference, CROI Cure workshop, on the subject that people believed that when their viral load was suppressed totally, that they were cured. So they stopped taking their treatment. So, I mean, there's a lot of misinformation and lack of information. So anything that you can do from the perspective of getting the behavioral input for what when you run through your experiments, is understand, now what did you get out of that? Answer what people believe that they are, things about them having done the test. I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, for so long we've focused on a CD4 count, and we've always known that that's important for initiation. And for treatment monitoring, it just is not very predictive and not very helpful. And so even through this study, a lot of the patients would come in expecting to get a CD4 count as a follow-up test. And so it takes some explaining, I think, because people have become so accustomed to CD4, and it's been such an easier test, and we've sort of restricted viral load testing to a lot of sub-Saharan Africa, that now we need to get the patients on board. And one nice way of doing point-of-care testing, as Nigel said, is it really informs the patient, and they appreciate seeing the test being run in front of them and getting the results on the same day. And it's so much easier to educate them about the test and what those results mean.
And not just because we're in the video business, so to speak. We're realizing that a lot of times videos can help people. We have now also can be misinformation on the internet, if you, depending upon where you're looking. But in clinics, it would be really helpful to have a message, since you have a little time there. Say, here's a computer. Hit this, and you're going to learn what you're going to get out of this, what you should understand from this test.
We should do that for the next phase of the study.
So one other nice thing, I think the International AIDS Society started this whole concept of differentiated care. So it's much more client-based. We don't call people with HIV patients almost anymore, because most people are well now. So in South Africa, they have a nice system, this community-based HIV treatment pickup system. So you can actually skip clinic visits and only come to clinic 6 monthly. So you pick up your medicines at 2 months and 4 months, and then come back to clinic at 6 months. And the viral load test allowed us to move clients into this system much quicker. And that means then you can go to a community pharmacy after hours, so you don't need to give up a whole day at work. So we also found, like, for example, a couple of stories were truck drivers. So in African settings, Durban is a harbor city, lots of trans-African trucking, and people are just in Durban on one day and then 3 months later. So the system actually allows them to do everything on one visit. They know their viral load, they know they can pick up their treatment at a pharmacy somewhere. So it allows a lot more what we call differentiated care, and I think that's probably the future. I think that's also what the
I think, and of course the thing, as an advocate myself and an activist, it's always important to include the community in when you make decisions. Bring them in as a community-based advisory board, and let them give you input on how they feel about this and that. And I think behavioral changes do happen. And I'm hoping that with this Fauci program that they're rolling out, it will be taken as a really serious effort. And I think we have to explore it as and expose it as that. And if not, it's just going to be like just yet another program that didn't work. So it has to be made of some, given the sense of importance that it deserves. And because it's too long that we've gone without having some sort of progress in the incidence levels. It's just Elton John would tell you some of his moments with 4-letter words. He's really, really ticked off. And he, as well he should be. He's made a huge investment. And it seems like it doesn't pan out as much, nearly as well as you should expect it to. So So do you have some modeling that you did also to kind of to understand why you feel your program is really good as well?
So we did some qualitative work, so a lot of interviews with patients, and we're doing some cost modeling as well. So the interviews really got at the heart of why is this intervention working? And like I said before, it's really patient-centric or client-centric. So it's really tailored to suit the clients and make their lives easier. So, whether that's getting their viral load results back right away, or as Nigel said, allows them to enter into the community ART pickup much faster, where they can just go to their local pharmacies, because otherwise they're spending half a day at the clinic, and oftentimes they're arriving at 5, 6 in the morning just so that they can get into the queue. So it's not, in sub-Saharan Africa, it's a very different system where you don't have a scheduled appointment and you're in and out in an hour. It's spending a whole day, and imagine doing that every other month. Just to pick up your medications. Even if you feel well, you still wait in the same queues, you still spend half a day. And if I were a patient there, I would be so frustrated, and I'd say this is crazy.
As I said before,
make it easier.
I think you should set in those clinics where people would say there's problems. Get a few of them who are who can speak well about their issues. Bring them in and say, okay, help us fix this problem. And I mean, they're the ones that are dealing with the problem. So if there's a problem that can be fixed, and that they can be a part of helping that fix, I always encourage that. It's solve your own problem, so to speak. You see a problem, help us fix it. Empower them to fix it.
And they've given us some great feedback. I mean, they love getting their results back right away, just so that they know if they need to change something, if they need to improve, they have those results and they can make those changes. Otherwise, we draw their blood and send them out, and they have no additional information than what they came in with, and won't get any additional information for another month.
Now,
they just have to keep coming back.
Exactly. Do you do anything with other testing, or is it, you're just basically a part of the process? I mean, they're doing other testing which has nothing to do with you. Is that true in the clinics, or do you do other testing at the same time?
So we've validated the expert test for chlamydia and gonorrhea testing. You know that in sub-Saharan Africa, we mainly do syndromic management of STIs. So I think that's another huge challenge for the setting, to transition back to some sort of diagnostic management system where we actually test for diseases, because we know that 80% of STIs are asymptomatic, especially in women, and they carry the biggest burden of HIV in that setting. So we've been evaluating the assays in the same way in women, which is great. And in our study, we realized you can't just offer point-of-care viral load testing on its own. So ideally you provide the entire package point of care. So do your CD4 count, do your creatinine for kidney functions, all in one setting.
So your organization,
So we've started now evaluating the creatinine assays, and the CD4 assay was already validated. So the more you can do within that 2-hour slot, the more efficient you will run, and you will reduce clinic visits, you decongest the clinics.
Right.
And in our study, I mean, we haven't discussed it in depth, but we found quite a high increase in retention, so about 8% increase in retention on it.
I think that's what you really need to show, and that will be your hallmark in moving forward and expanding what you're doing. And I mean, every little bit that we can do to, especially these days, to get people to be excited about doing the right thing by testing and seeing where they are in their level, in their disease state and so forth is really critical.
Yeah. And then we also have a project, we received a grant from the NIH to do self-testing for HIV viral load. So at some point in the future, we'll be able to not only reduce the amount of time that it takes to get the viral load result back, because an hour and a half is a long time to wait, and we should be able to do that faster. But then eventually we should be able to get to a point where we can also do self-testing for HIV viral load, and that'll be interesting as well.
I've got to give another point of remembrance.
Yeah.
Back to the old days when the first viral load tests were out. Of course, you eventually got to the point where they were using this to prove the benefit of the drugs when it hadn't been certified itself. But nonetheless, this test was being available, but we had to buy it ourselves because it wasn't certified, and so we were out there, scraping enough money together to spend, and I think we managed to find a place that would do it for $106.
Wow.
And that's what it was at the time. That was in Florida many years ago, many years ago.
Yeah.
And we felt it was really important for us to know what we were doing, and it was. So, but that's where we were, and here we are today with what you're offering. It's quite a difference, quite an advancement. Yeah. And we're still moving forward, like you say, with new ideas. So.
Yeah, and we're hoping with this NIH grant, our plan is to be able to do a viral load on a simple strip of paper, and it would be less than $10, and it could be as fast as 15, 20 minutes.
Exactly.
So, imagine how much patients would appreciate that. Then you could just do it all in the same clinical visit. There wouldn't be any additional waiting for 2 hours to wait for the machine to run. You could do it in any remote clinic, whether it's in sub-Saharan Africa or the rural US, and then patients would be able to take it home.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing, is it's not so much people who live in a city close to a clinic, but with the people that are traveling, like you said, in Africa, that are traveling from city to city, or in many cases in our country, in the United States, or Canada or whatever, you have people travel a great distance to a clinic visit. So that's very important for them. Well, listen, gentlemen, I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us, and keep us up to date on the new directions you're headed and the new work you're doing.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Thanks.
And Nigel.